In 2026, we're gonna let them hate, and I want to be very clear about that from the jump. That's not a slogan. That's a lifestyle choice. No speeches, no explanations, no long-winded stories about your growth. Just vibes, progress. And you being mad about it somewhere else. Your existence alone is gonna piss somebody off this year. Just you waking up is offensive to someone with unresolved issues. Just you breathing calmly is a personal attack to a miserable person. You didn't even do anything yet, and they already irritated. You sipping tea, minding your business, and they calling that fake. Nah, that's called peace. And peace triggers people who thrive on chaos. Let's talk about 2025 for a second, because that year was rude. Some of y'all dealt with narcissists who treated emotions like a rental car. Some of y'all dealt with friends who secretly hated every win you had. Some of y'all had coworkers who smiled at you like a hostage negotiator. And some of y'all were just innocent humans, doing regular human stuff. Moisturizing your skin like you're supposed to. Drinking water like a doctor suggested one time. Debating serious life questions, like whether the Jacksonville Jaguars are a real team. Or whether this was the year you go all natural and let your ancestors breathe. That's all you were doing, and somehow that still bothered somebody. Because here's the truth, nobody likes to say out loud. Haters don't hate effort, they hate ease. They hate when things look natural for you. They hate when you're calm without trying to prove anything. They hate when you're not chasing validation like it's a coupon. They hate when you stop explaining yourself to people who already decided to misunderstand you. They hate when you don't argue back. They hate when you don't defend your character in group chats. They hate when you're unbothered and still winning. And the wild part is, that hatred has nothing to do with you personally. It has everything to do with what they see when they look at you. They see something they want but don't know how to become. They see peace they haven't earned yet. They see confidence they can't fake forever. They see growth they didn't commit to. They see freedom from validation, and that scares insecure people. So instead of healing, they project. Instead of growing, they criticize. Instead of minding their business, they monitor yours. And they call that concern, but it's really envy in sweatpants. So in 2026, we're changing the rules of engagement completely. We're not explaining ourselves to people committed to misunderstanding us. We're not arguing with people who benefit from chaos. We're not defending our joy like it's on trial. We're not shrinking to make insecure folks comfortable. We're not managing other people's emotions like it's a second job. We're not over-communicating with people who under-respect us. We're not teaching grown folks how to treat us properly. We're letting them hate from a distance with binoculars if they need clarity. And that's just the beginning of the energy shift. Let's get something clear before we go any further, because some people still think hate requires effort from you. It doesn't. Hate is a self-starter. Hate wakes up before you do. Hate clocks in early and stays late without benefits. You don't have to flex, post, brag, or explain for someone to be mad. You could be silent for 6 months and still be the topic of conversation. That's how you know it's not about what you did. It's about who you are. And once you understand that, you stop trying to manage other people's reactions like it's your responsibility. See, insecure people need you to react so they can feel real. They poke, prod, and test because chaos validates them. When you don't bite, it messes up their whole script. They want the argument, not the truth. They want the reaction, not the resolution. They want to feel important by making you uncomfortable. And when you don't give them that, they start spiraling internally. Silence becomes louder than shouting. Calm becomes more disrespectful than insults. And your peace feels like a personal attack. Now here's where it gets funny. Because hate gets real specific in 2026. Mad that I bought a new car, they can hate it. Mad that I'm drinking water and trying to live past 40, they can hate it. Mad that I'm breathing better, sleeping better, and not stressed anymore, they can hate it. Mad that I'm smiling without checking who's watching, they can hate it. Mad that I didn't announce my next move in advance, they can hate it. Mad that I'm not explaining myself anymore, they can hate it. Mad that I didn't crash and burn like they expected, they can hate it. Mad that I'm not accessible on demand, they can hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. Because in 2026, access is earned, not assumed. Just because someone knows you doesn't mean they get you. Just because someone had you before doesn't mean they get you again. Just because someone feels entitled to your time doesn't mean you owe it. Energy is currency now. Attention is expensive. And if someone keeps showing you they don't respect it, the price just went up beyond their budget. That's not arrogance, that's economics. This is the part where empaths usually struggle, because you were taught to explain, soften, and over-understand everybody. You were trained to be reasonable even when people were being ridiculous. You were told to keep the peace, even when peace meant self-betrayal. You learned to anticipate emotions before people even spoke, and that skill helped you survive, but it's not meant to be permanent. Survival mode is not a lifestyle, and 2026 is about graduating from that. So now, you're choosing indifference on purpose. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. Not because you don't care, but because you care about the right things. Not because you're bitter, but because you're done bleeding for people who won't bandage you. You don't announce boundaries anymore, you enforce them quietly. You don't debate disrespect, you exit it. You don't chase closure, you create distance. And when people realize they can't move you anymore, that's when the hate gets loudest. Here's the part nobody warns you about when you stop caring. The hate doesn't disappear, it gets confused. People start reaching for reactions they used to get easily. They send little comments disguised as jokes. They ask questions that aren't really questions. They bring up old stuff like it's still relevant. They start watching you closer than they ever supported you. And all of it is an attempt to see if they still have access. When they realize they don't, frustration kicks in. Because when you were reactive, you were predictable. When you were explaining yourself, you were accessible. When you were overgiving, they could count on you to show up no matter what. Now, you're quiet. Now you're selective. Now you're calm in ways that don't make sense to people who live off chaos. And that calm feels disrespectful to folks who only feel powerful when you're emotionally involved. Your silence becomes a mirror they don't want to look into. And let's be honest, some of the hate comes from people who benefited from your confusion. They liked you better when you doubted yourself. They liked you when you were unsure and seeking approval. They liked you when you asked for permission to be yourself. They liked you when you apologized for existing. The moment you stopped doing that, the relationship changed. Not because you became different, but because you became clearer. And clarity threatens people who thrive in ambiguity. This is also where the narcissists really start to panic. They need supply. They need attention, reactions, and emotional energy to feel real. When you go indifferent, it's like cutting the power to the building. Suddenly, all their tricks stop working. The guilt doesn't land. The insults don't sting. The bait doesn't hook you. And because they can't control you anymore, they try to control the narrative. That's when rumors show up. That's when they play the victim. That's when they say you changed. But let's be clear. You didn't change, you healed. You didn't get cold, you got boundaries. You didn't become arrogant, you became self-respecting. You didn't lose empathy, you redirected it toward yourself. And people who only valued you for what you provided will always be uncomfortable when you stop providing it. That discomfort turns into resentment, and resentment turns into hate. That's not your burden to carry. So in 2026, you stop trying to correct how people see you. You stop chasing understanding from people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop proving your worth to folks who never recognized it in the first place. You let them be wrong in peace. You let them tell their version of the story. You let them sit with their feelings while you move on with your life. Because the loudest form of self-respect is not engagement, it's indifference. By the time you hit this stage, you start realizing something that feels both funny and sad at the same time. A lot of people never knew you. They just knew the version of you that was available. They knew the you that answered fast. They knew the you that explained too much. They knew the you that tolerated nonsense because you didn't want conflict. And when that version of you retires, they act like you betrayed them. But you didn't betray anyone. You just stopped betraying yourself. This is why indifference hits harder than anger ever could. Anger still means you care. Anger still keeps you emotionally involved. Indifference removes you from the equation completely. There's nothing to grab onto, nothing to twist, nothing to argue with. People will try to provoke you just to feel relevant again. They'll throw shots, subtweets, side comments, and just checking in messages. And every time you don't respond, their imagination does the work for you. What really messes with people is when your life keeps moving forward without their approval. You're doing better, not louder. You're glowing, not announcing it. You're upgrading quietly while they're still stuck in the same emotional loop. You're not chasing revenge, you're chasing peace. And that's when they start saying things like, "You think you're better than everybody." No, you just think you're worth protecting. And let's talk about how petty the hate gets. Because it does. Mad that you bought a new car, they can hate it. Mad that you're drinking water and minding your health, they can hate it. Mad that you're breathing deeper and not stressed like you used to be, they can hate it. Mad that you're smiling without checking the room, they can hate it. Mad that you're not available on demand anymore, they can hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. I am not entering the group chat of nonsense. This is the moment you realize peace is not passive, it's intentional. You're choosing not to engage. You're choosing not to correct. You're choosing not to react. And that choice takes strength, not weakness. It takes discipline to let people be wrong about you. It takes confidence to stop managing perceptions. It takes growth to walk away without slamming the door. And when you do, you leave people arguing with a version of you that no longer exists. So now in 2026, your energy is different. You're still kind, but you're not accessible. You're still empathetic, but you're not available for emotional labor. You still love deeply, but you love yourself enough to walk away. And when people realize they can't pull you back into old patterns, the hate turns into noise. And noise is easy to ignore when you're focused on building a life that actually feels good. At this point, you start noticing something else that's kind of hilarious if you step back and look at it. The people who talk about you the most usually know the least about you. They fill in the gaps with assumptions, projections, and half-remembered versions of the past. They speak with confidence about a story they were never the main character in. And the more you don't respond, the more detailed their imaginary version of you becomes. That's when you realize you're living rent-free in a place you don't even visit. Because when you stop explaining yourself, people start explaining you to each other. They analyze your silence like it's a coded message. They interpret your growth as arrogance. They call your boundaries switching up. They label your peace as avoidance. And none of it is accurate, but all of it reveals them. The truth is, healed people don't need to narrate your life. Only insecure people need a storyline where they're still relevant. This is also when the old dynamics try one last time to reassert themselves. Random messages pop up out of nowhere. Old connections suddenly check in. People who ignored you when you were struggling suddenly notice you when you're calm. And it's not because they care now. It's because your energy changed. They felt the shift. And they're trying to figure out if they still have access before it's permanently revoked. But in 2026, you're not confused anymore. You don't mistake curiosity for care. You don't confuse familiarity with loyalty. You don't interpret attention as intention. You've learned that not everyone who wants to talk to you deserves to be heard. And not everyone who misses you deserves another chance. Some people only miss the role you played in their life, not the person you actually are. So when they get mad about your upgrades, let them. Mad that you bought a new car, let them hate it. Mad that you're drinking water, sleeping better, and choosing peace, let them hate it. Mad that you're not struggling the way you used to, let them hate it. Mad that you're not available for their chaos anymore, let them hate it. Argue with your mama because you are not arguing with me. I am booked, busy, and emotionally unavailable for nonsense. And here's the key shift. You stop seeing hate as a problem and start seeing it as confirmation. Confirmation that you're no longer playing small. Confirmation that you've outgrown the room. Confirmation that your growth is visible even when you're quiet. Hate becomes background noise, like traffic you don't even notice anymore. And once you stop reacting to it, you finally have the space to build the life you were too distracted to build before. By now, you understand that letting them hate isn't about being cold or cruel. It's about being honest with yourself. You're not punishing anyone, you're protecting your energy. You're not holding grudges, you're holding boundaries. And the people who respect you will adjust without complaint. The people who don't will reveal themselves without effort. Either way, you stop chasing clarity from people who benefit from your confusion. This is where the empath evolution really locks in. You were never weak, you were just unguarded. You felt deeply, noticed everything, and tried to fix what wasn't yours to fix. You absorbed moods that weren't yours to carry. You explained yourself to people who weren't listening. And you thought that was love. But love without limits is self-abandonment. And in 2026, you're done abandoning yourself. What changes next is subtle but powerful. You stop volunteering information. You stop oversharing. You stop filling silences out of discomfort. You let people sit with what they said. You let conversations end without forcing resolution. You don't rush to smooth things over. And that quiet restraint drives manipulators absolutely crazy, because they can't read you anymore. They'll test you in small ways first. A little sarcasm, a little passive aggression, a little guilt wrapped in nostalgia. They'll reference the old you like it was a better version. They'll say things like, you used to be so easy to talk to. What they mean is you used to tolerate more. And you don't take the bait because you recognize the pattern now. That awareness is expensive, and they can't afford it. So when they get mad about your choices, you don't defend them. Mad that you bought a new car, let them hate it. Mad that you're drinking water and choosing health over chaos, let them hate it. Mad that you're breathing better, sleeping deeper and laughing again, let them hate it. Mad that you're no longer reactive, let them hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. I am not available for emotional tug-of-war. This is when your life starts feeling lighter. You're not carrying other people's expectations anymore. You're not rehearsing conversations in your head. You're not explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds. You're just living, and that freedom is intoxicating. It's also terrifying to people who built their identity around controlling your reactions. Let them hate. You've got better things to do. Something else shifts around this time, and it's quiet but undeniable. You stop needing people to see you correctly in order to feel solid. You realize that being misunderstood by people who never took the time to know you is not a loss. It's actually a filter. The wrong people fall away without you having to push them. The right people don't need explanations. And that alone saves you years of emotional labor. This is also when you notice how much time you used to waste managing optics. Making sure nobody felt uncomfortable. Making sure nobody felt left out. Making sure nobody misinterpreted your tone, your boundaries, your success. And now, you don't do that anymore. You let people think what they want. You let silence do the clarifying. You let distance do the teaching. And you finally understand that peace doesn't need a PR team. People will swear you're acting brand new. But the truth is you're acting healed. You're acting rested. You're acting like someone who no longer lives in survival mode. And survival mode made you accessible to the wrong folks. Healing mode makes you selective. That's why the hate feels louder now. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something different. And yes, the hate gets ridiculous. Mad that you bought a new car and didn't announce it, let them hate it. Mad that you're drinking water, eating better, and choosing longevity, let them hate it. Mad that you're breathing easy and not stressed about stuff that used to drain you, let them hate it. Mad that you're laughing again without checking who's watching, let them hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. I am not hosting emotional debates in 2026. What really seals it is when you stop internalizing other people's disappointment. You realize their frustration is not your failure. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their expectations were never a contract you signed. And once you see that clearly, guilt loses its grip. You don't feel bad for choosing yourself anymore. You feel relieved. So now, your presence feels different. You're still warm, but you're not porous. You're still loving, but you're not leaking energy everywhere. You still care, but you care with intention. And the people who benefited from your overextension will call that selfish. Let them. Selfish is just what self-respect looks like to people who don't have any. And in 2026, we let them hate. By this stage, you're no longer shocked by who falls off, you're more surprised by who stays. The people who remain don't demand access, they respect distance. They don't interrogate your growth, they celebrate it. They don't need you to be smaller so they can feel bigger. And once you experience relationships like that, you realize how exhausting the old ones really were. You weren't sensitive. You were surrounded by people who didn't know how to handle someone with depth. You also start laughing at how predictable the hate becomes. Same patterns, different faces. First comes the confusion, then the entitlement, then the subtle disrespect, then the open criticism. When that doesn't work, they play victim. When that doesn't work, they pretend they never cared. And when that doesn't work, they sit back and watch, quietly, closely, like spectators to a life they no longer have access to. This is where indifference turns into power. Not loud power, not flashy power, calm power, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that doesn't explain, the kind that doesn't need validation. You walk into rooms differently now. You leave conversations earlier. You don't stay where you're tolerated. And people can feel that shift, even if they can't name it. And yes, the petty stuff still shows up. Mad that you bought a new car and didn't struggle for it. Let them hate it. Mad that you're drinking water, minding your health, and not aging in dog years from stress. Let them hate it. Mad that you're breathing freely and not carrying everybody's problems anymore. Let them hate it. Mad that you're happy without chaos attached. Let them hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. I have retired from unnecessary conversations. What really locks it in is when you realize you don't need closure from people who never gave you clarity. You don't need apologies from people who lack accountability. You don't need explanations from people who already showed you who they were. Peace doesn't come from answers. It comes from acceptance. And acceptance is deciding you're done revisiting rooms that drained you. So in 2026, your life gets quieter and fuller at the same time. Less noise, more meaning. Less access, more alignment. Less explaining, more living. And the hate fades into the background where it belongs. Not because it's gone, but because it no longer gets your attention. And anything that doesn't get your attention can't control you. By now, you're not even mad at the haters anymore. You're amused. You see them like background characters arguing with themselves while you're on a completely different storyline. They're still trying to win conversations you stopped having. They're still reacting to versions of you that don't exist anymore. And you're not offended by it. Because you finally understand that not everyone gets to come with you when you grow. This is also where you stop romanticizing who people used to be. You don't cling to memories to excuse present behavior. You don't say things like that's just how they are to override how you feel. You don't minimize disrespect just because it came from someone familiar. Familiarity does not equal safety. History does not equal access. And comfort does not equal alignment. Those lessons alone save you from repeating old cycles. You also stop explaining your healing to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You don't argue about your boundaries. You don't negotiate your peace. You don't soften your tone to make disrespect easier to swallow. You don't prove your intentions to people who only look for flaws. You let people believe whatever helps them sleep at night. And you keep waking up, rested. And yes, the hate still pops up in ridiculous ways. Mad that you bought a new car and didn't ask for opinions. Let them hate it. Mad that you're drinking water, minding your health, and choosing longevity. Let them hate it. Mad that you're breathing freely and not spiraling like you used to? Let them hate it. Mad that you're not entertaining nonsense anymore? Let them hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. I have officially retired from explaining myself. What's wild is how peaceful life gets when you stop trying to be understood by everyone. Your nervous system calms down. Your sleep improves. Your thoughts get clearer. You make better decisions because you're not emotionally overloaded. You move with intention instead of reaction. And people can feel that stability even if they don't have access to it. So now, when you say we letting them hate, it's not bravado, it's truth. It's not bitterness, it's boundaries. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're just living in a way that feels honest to you. And that honesty is the most disruptive thing you could offer to people who live off illusion. At this point, the lesson is fully integrated, not intellectual, not motivational, but lived. You don't wake up thinking about haters anymore. You don't scan rooms for tension. You don't brace yourself for reactions. You just exist. And that ease is what used to feel impossible back when you thought you had to manage everybody's feelings to survive. Turns out, you didn't need permission to be free. You just needed to stop explaining. This is why letting them hate is not about revenge. It's about release. You release yourself from the need to be liked. You release yourself from the burden of being understood. You release yourself from the fantasy that clarity will come from the same people who benefited from your confusion. You stop auditioning for roles in other people's lives. You stop negotiating your worth. And suddenly, everything feels lighter. You also realize something that's almost funny in hindsight. The people who hated the most were never competing with you. They were competing with the version of themselves they avoided becoming. Your growth exposed their stagnation. Your peace exposed their chaos. Your boundaries exposed their entitlement. And instead of rising to the moment, they resented you for it. That was never your problem to solve. So yes, in 2026, when they're mad that you bought a new car, let them hate it. When they're mad that you're drinking water, sleeping better, and choosing health, let them hate it. When they're mad that you're breathing freely and not carrying their baggage anymore, let them hate it. When they're mad that you didn't crash the way they expected, let them hate it. Argue with your mama. You are not arguing with me. I have retired from unnecessary conversations. What matters now is this. You know who you are. You know what you tolerate. You know what you're building. You know what drains you and what fuels you. And that clarity is priceless. You don't owe anyone access, explanations, or emotional labor just because they're uncomfortable with your growth. Peace is not something you defend. It's something you protect. So if you made it this far, ask yourself this honestly. Who are you done explaining yourself to this year? Who no longer gets access to your energy? Who benefits from your confusion instead of your clarity? Sit with that answer, because it's going to change how you move. And when you choose yourself without apology, remember this. In 2026, we're gonna let them hate. This has been the Narc Op. If this hit, follow, share it with somebody who's done arguing with fools, and step into the year unbothered.